Sergeant Elijah Myrick. That's Elijah Myrick, Myrick, and I'm the supervisor over the Major Crime Suppression Unit in the Organized Crime Division. I'm here today to talk about the cell phone thefts that occurred during our Austin City Limits Music Festival. We estimate that approximately 500 cell phones were stolen each weekend. Our Major Crimes Unit, when we started finding out about this, we were deployed plainclothes resources throughout our Organized Crime Division to the festival. We were able to act on some intelligence given to us by a concerned citizen at the festival and identify 2 suspects during weekend 1. We surveyed those suspects and were able to make an arrest and recover stolen property from those persons. That press release went out last week. The suspects were Holman Malpica and Johan Malpica. They were arrested for felony theft from person. Figured that there was approximately 6 or 7 suspects involved with these thefts. We worked with the United States Postal Inspector and were able to recover approximately 290 phones from the mail. We continued our investigation into weekend 2 and were able to identify additional suspects and get additional suspects descriptions. This Monday, acting on that intelligence, the Major Crime Suppression Unit interdicted those suspects at the Austin airport, and were able to make 3 additional arrests, recovering stolen property from victims at our Austin City Limits Music Festival. Those suspects, Jenny Gomez, Lida Morena, John Diaz Alberison, were all arrested for felony 3 engaging in organized crime. At this point in time, we still suspect that there was an additional suspects involved. Unfortunately, we recovered a lot of phones from weekend 1 of ACL, but many of the phones that were stolen during weekend 2 have not been recovered. So the investigation is ongoing at this point in time, and we suspect that additional charges will be filed. I just want to go ahead and thank members of the community that have come and recovered their phone, given us additional information. Members of the community that approached us at Austin City Limits Music Festival and gave us information, helping us to identify these suspects. C3 Presents, who put on Austin City Limits Music Festival, working with us, and then NPB Security that was also there. At this point in time, once again, we've recovered approximately 290 cell phones, and we've been able to return 100 of those from victims of weekend 1 thefts. At this point in time, I'll open up to any questions you may have.
So from the 500 that were recovered the first weekend, how many have you been able to distribute back to the owners?
Right, so we approximate that approximately 500 phones were stolen. Of those, 286 were interdicted in the mail, and then our plainclothes officers were actually able to recover some of that stolen property from the citizen, reunited with victims. We're still looking for additional phones that have been stolen, but we were only able to interdict so many that were in the
mail. You had also mentioned the airport. Were they recovered through the mail through the airport, or were suspects actually trying to leave with it?
Thefts are very common in public transit in cities like New York. They're also very common at music festivals around the country, and that's kind of why we were ready and prepared this year to interdict these criminals here. Most of the phones that were recovered in the United States Postal Service. We did recover some phones, not a large quantity, but some phones involved with the suspects as they were leaving on the airport, but the phones were not traveling on the airplanes. But we did recover stolen phones with the suspects that we interdicted at the airport.
Since federal crimes have been committed here, are you working with the FBI or calling them about this?
Luckily, our Organized Crime Division, we have a myriad of task force. We work with the ATF, we work with Homeland Security and the FBI, and we've leaned on some of their resources for this. At this point in time, state charges have been filed. I'm hoping that those are sufficient, but we will obviously lean on our federal partners anytime we need to.
So were the first 2 arrested, the Malpica, were they brothers based on their both last names were the same?
Yes, ma'am, they are brothers.
Were they also working with the other 3 that were arrested in the second weekend?
All right, the investigation is still ongoing, but we believe that all 6 or 7 suspects, so we've arrested 5, we believe that there's an additional 2 or 3 more suspects. We believe that they're all connected, but we're still working on putting that larger engaging organized crime case together.
Can you give us I don't know if you would be able to answer this, but what other crimes are usually committed during these festivals? Are they also sexual?
You know, every year during major events and any day during a major city, there are, 1 or 2 sexual offenses are committed. Sometimes violent crime is committed. But at the Austin City Limits Music Festival, it's obviously a very safe place to be. We don't have a lot of crime committed, but these small groups of people, 5 or 6 people, come in and are able to steal 1,000 phones from 80,000 people. So this small group has a very big impact. So the majority of crime that did occur at Austin City Limits Music Festival is going to be the property crime, and that's why we work to interdict it. We've already begun working with C3 for next year, and as we have South by Southwest coming, to develop plans to interdict these people. Obviously, we work to having a robust violent crimes response on a daily basis, but this property crime and this international pickpocketing is a newer thing we've had to deal with in Austin, and we're ready to tackle it moving forward for our upcoming events.
In the press release, you gave some tips. Do you mind giving those tips to avoid becoming the next victim of this crime?
Yeah, absolutely. So when you go to a big festival, unfortunately, the criminals were very good at what they do. It wasn't just phones in back pockets. We've had phones stolen from back pockets, front pockets, men, women, people dressed in all type of clothing. We had a lot of our festival attendees wearing fanny packs in the front with a zipper. We've had phones taken out of those. So it's just always being aware of your surrounding, and also approaching police. If you have something, you have information about something that's not right or something that's suspicious, a lot of times we got that information way too late. But we did get information there when somebody saw something and they felt like someone was acting suspiciously. We were able to approach these people and talk to them and develop intelligence that helped lead to some of these arrests.
And the serial number too, you mentioned something about a serial number?
Right, so the best way to identify a phone that's lost or stolen is through the IMEI number. The serial number is also helpful. We've been able to lean on our digital forensics unit and connect those IMEI numbers and make phone calls. So anywhere from notifications that have come up on, say, Instagram or through a class scheduling application, or also medical device information that people have on their iPhone, we're able to locate, we think, almost all of the owners of these cell phones, and we've reached out and made contact, and will be making contact with owners of stolen property throughout the next week.
Are there any steps to prevent this from happening again?
Right, I think we can just continue to have a robust response as a police department. Obviously, we're a very big city, and I think that having festivals of this size are always going to attract a organized criminal element. But I think it's important that they all know that the city of Austin is going to be prepared to deal with this. Like I said, we're already talking about doubling up and having an even more robust response for Austin City Limits next year.
Were you able to witness the actual picking through cameras at ACL Fest? Did you see it happen?
Yeah, we actually do have cameras. Luckily, we were able to deploy plainclothes officers that could, once we identified who these suspects are, we were able to make arrests shortly after these thefts were occurring. So it was very helpful to have plainclothes officers in the crowd.
Does APD believe these 5 suspects came to Austin from out of state or out of the country, like specifically to buy a ticket to ACL to complete this crime?
Absolutely. So this organized crime ring, through some of our investigation, we've learned that they actually attended other festivals throughout the country, and we believe that that's primarily what they do. They go from festival to festival, Super Bowls. When there's not a major event, they hit mass transit, and they're organized in a fashion. They were, very organized in the shipping of the phones. That's what they do. That's their primary occupation.
And how do a couple people, get out of a festival with hundreds of phones? Like, where? I don't logistically understand how that works.
Right, and we're still trying to figure that out. Like I said, it's very creative. We actually removed a belly band with concealed phones off one of the suspects. So that's why we believe it's a very large group. Obviously, 2 brothers would have a difficult time removing 500 phones. And so that's, one of the reasons we believed, after those first arrests, the first weekend, we knew our job wasn't done. We continued the investigation and learned that more suspects were involved.
Are we good? Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much.